I'll be the first to tell you, I love slasher movies. They're simple, they're loud, and they're so much fun.
You know, in a weird way, there's something almost comforting about them. The formula, the kills, and the rules they all follow.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
Each killer as cool as the next one. And all of it comes together in an isolated setting with a bloody finale. It's predictable, it's safe, and that's kind of the point. There's nothing really innovative about any of these slasher movies, and horror has been stuck in this loop for decades. And it's not only the slasher movies. Supernatural horror has its own checklist too. You have a haunted house, a ghost reveal, an emotional backstory. Take found footage. You seriously can't tell me that all found footage films aren't the same. Even the elevated horror, the quote-unquote smart Ari Aster kind, has started to feel like it's following its own script. You know, you have slow burn pacing, tragic metaphors, and most importantly, one big disturbing image to hang all of the marketing on. All of this feels like one giant safety net. The genre that used to thrive on chaos and individuality has started to feel comfortable. That was until Zach Cregger. Yes, that Zach Cregger, the guy from The Whitest Kids You Know.
Zach Cregger.
Yeah.
Trevor Moore.
Hey.
How you doing?
Good. I haven't seen you in like 7.
When he dropped Barbarian in 2022, everyone thought it was just another Airbnb horror movie. You have a protagonist who books a rental, and there's a creepy guy already living there. Not to mention that this creepy guy is literally Pennywise the clown from It. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward, right? You know where this is going. Until it doesn't even remotely go there. You're telling me Pennywise from It isn't a bad guy? He's just a really cool, down-to-earth, chill guy who tragically gets killed? What made Barbarian so wild was the way it told its story. It starts as one movie, a claustrophobic thriller about a woman trapped in a house with a stranger, and then halfway through, it creates its own narrative through nothing other than a simple hard cut. And it was this hard cut that changed the trajectory of modern horror. Suddenly we're in broad daylight and we're following a totally different character in a totally different tone. The story doesn't just shift gears, it honestly jumps genres, which is crazy. Barbarian is funny one minute, horrifying the next, then oddly tragic. It's chaotic, it's kind of a mess, but it's inventive. Barbarian doesn't just subvert tropes, it weaponizes them. See, you see what I did there? Weapons. What I appreciate the most about Cregger is that he recognizes that audiences have been trained to expect certain beats in a horror movie for the past 2 decades. And so he takes this idea and he flips it on its head. Honestly, you're punished for trying to predict what's going to happen next. And when talking about modern horror, I don't want to give Cregger all of the credit. You know, we've seen this with filmmakers like Jordan Peele, Ari Aster, or Robert Eggers, who have all recently redefined horror through meaning, symbolism, and tone. But what Cregger's doing is something a little weirder. He's making you honestly question if what you're watching is a horror movie. He loves to tell his stories in unique ways, whether this be non-linear storytelling, POV storytelling, or flat out just skipping around for the fun of it.
And the organizations ain't really organized.
He's making movies that force you to pay attention. That's by design. And it's also why people are split on movies like Barbarian and Weapons. Weapons takes everything that worked in Barbarian and honestly just dials it up to 100. If Barbarian was like a roller coaster, I don't even know what Weapons is. It's like Tom Cruise doing his Halo jump. I don't know, it's crazy. Weapons plays out like a collection of individual stories, almost anthology-like, but slowly through moments of violence and grief that seem random at first, these stories start bleeding together. For a genre that has been plagued by being called too predictable, there's nothing safe about Weapons. A teacher, a grieving parent, a mustached cop, a junkie spiraling out of control, and an iconic horror villain. With the introduction of each new story and new character, you're saying goodbye to an old one. You spend the first 20 minutes of the film with Justine Gandy, and once you switch off of her, you honestly don't see her until the final 30 minutes of the film. Just when you think you found your footing and you start to connect with certain characters, Cregger yanks it away, and he gives you a new one. starting all over again. Each story starts over and resets the board. And I think this is such a risk because you are asking so much out of your audience. You're trusting them to stay with the film and stay with all these new characters. Weapons refuses to tell its story in a straight line, but it's in this way that a scene you thought you understood earlier returns later from a completely different perspective, and you start to understand new motivations and reevaluate each character. But with all of this in mind, don't mistake Weapons for a slow, artsy mood piece. Weapons is also fast-paced and witty. The film literally opens up with the kids running away. It doesn't take any time to get into the action.
Watch out now, take up your word.
Weapons is funny in a deeply uncomfortable, like Coen Brothers kind of way. Cregger has recognized that horror and absurdity live side by side, and that with a moment of laughter, he can make the next scare hit twice as hard. Something that we saw in both Barbarian and now Weapons. Cregger himself has said that he writes without a plan, letting the story find him as he goes. And I honestly think you can feel this spontaneity baked into every frame. Zach Cregger's films feel alive. They feel like they have a mind of their own. They're unpredictable. And in an era where horror movies are built from templates and test screenings, Weapons feels like that old style of filmmaking where you're throwing the rule book into a wood chipper just to see what happens. Whether you loved Weapons or hated it, it's impossible to deny that Zach Cregger is reshaping what horror can be. For decades, this predictability in the horror genre has been a comfort and a curse. Much to the dismay of Randy Meeks from Scream, Zach Cregger is proving that horror doesn't have to live by its own commandments anymore. It's allowed to be messy, absurd, and non-linear. And he's reminding us that fear doesn't come from the mask or the monster in your slasher film. It simply comes from not knowing what's waiting for you around the corner.
Horror. Horror.